Hey, what's up guys, Eugene from Menla Designs. All we're trying to make is an LED strip that is attached to a tape measure or something like a tape measure. So if I put that back on the screen. So this is quite literally a tape measure with an LED strip underneath, and then I have an Arduino Uno attached to it, and I have a battery pack. So if I plug this in off screen, in a second, these LED lights are going to turn on. There we go. So all I want to do is be able to make this and then also have it so that way there's a motor that can actually push the LED strip out and retract it back in, so I can, make an array of these and join them all together. I decided I want to do something a little bit different. Instead of just going over what the final product looks like and kind of thought process after it's been developed, I'm going to be doing a live stream throughout the, all the steps of this and going over the milestones of creating this product from start to finish. And you can kind of come along with me to see, where I struggle on my design, creating the CAD, and also just the thought process behind it. So the reason I want to make this is because my brother had shown me a video at a Red Hot Chili Peppers concert in 2016 where they had these things called a nano winch, which is, quite literally just a motor with a wire, and then an LED is attached to it at the end, and it's modular and can be swapped out. But they had an array of like 1,000 of them, and these are for like raves or concerts and that type of thing. But it was pretty expensive, so I want to try to make my own. And I want to try doing something a little bit differently than just making a wire that goes up and down. So I thought it'd be interesting if I can make it so that way it's a rigid structure that's moving up and down that could also be wound up. So that's why we have the concept of using a tape measure, and having an LED strip attached to it, so it's not a single light, it's a whole array of lights that you could turn on and off. Creating this project, I want to teach you more about the actual process that I go through when creating any kind of product, and while I'm actually developing, kind of the failures that I'm having, as well as if you watched that live stream that I did yesterday, I spent like 15 minutes just like trying to get the spiral to come out properly, and it was a huge pain, but I was able to get to what I wanted to in the end, and I'll edit that and shorten it down a little bit. And for the milestones is what I'm trying to do is I need to create the final CAD design of like the initial concept, which is just basically that tape measure that I had shown, make it so that there's a motor that can retract and retract and push out the LED strip, and it could do that continuously, and just have that motor in there and the LED strip, and I'll have a separate Arduino Uno that we'll be using, and that's just to prove that we can actually make the product and that it will function. And once we prove that that's something that was interesting, it's kind of doing more or less what I want it to do, then we'll move on to actually creating a pattern for the LEDs and kind of mess around with the programming with Arduino in that. And after all that, I'm going to see if we want to make our own custom circuit board. So going into actually designing some electronics so that instead of having Arduino Uno, there could be its own custom circuit board inside there that's controlling the motor and the LEDs, and makes it so they could be attached in an array of them, and teach a little bit about that as well. So just to give a recap as to what was actually made inside of the live stream was this, and then I'll go over into some changes that I'll need to be making when moving forwards. So this is what I ended up making in the CAD. Wasn't all too much. All it is there's the spiral, so there's the orange, which is this tape measure. There's the LED strip, which on the images and everything that I showed here, I actually have the tape measure underneath and not on the inside. And I actually want it to be underneath, because that means you can have it so it's hanging like this and all the light is coming down from the bottom. So I'm gonna have to adjust the CAD model to fix that. And this let me make an accurate model that I modeled in that LED strip and the tape measure, so I know that when I first printed, let's see where it is, the housing. So when I first printed this housing, this is the very first prototype that I made. And it's not the prettiest and it doesn't work the best, but it actually went together and created a, somewhat functional prototype without actually needing to go through any iterations. So that's why it's, important to make sure you get everything that has a physical component that you're going to be interacting with loaded into there and modeled correctly, so that way you have to make less changes out in the future. So I was able to make that prototype, and I got some changes that I got to make to it. One thing that I didn't account for is that in the spiral for the tape measure, I actually have it that the tape measure still has that curve, just like when it's sticking out. But actually, when this is bent, it's flattening out, so it's not curved anymore. So I need to adjust the CAD model so it's actually a little bit flatter, which means it's going to be a little bit wider on the inside. And there's one more thing I need to do, which is, as of right now, I actually can't really retract the tape measure back inside of here. And that's because of two reasons. That there's the, let me just switch my camera around. There's the little LED strips, which as you are pushing this in, they're getting caught on there, so it doesn't want to go in there. But also, as I try pushing the tape measure in, the tape measure is like unwinding, and then it's getting caught, so it's not going in any farther. So I'm actually going to need to design a mechanism so that way when I'm pushing in by hand, or once there's a motor in here, not only is it pushing from here to be able to push it back in, but also making it so the diameter on the inside, the reel that's holding it in place, is going to be winding at the same speed as well, and that way I'll actually be able to load and unload the LED strip without it getting caught or causing any problems. So that's what the next live stream that I'm going to be doing is going to be about. I'm going to make that change, make it so that way there's a larger central hub, so that way I could rotate the inside and pull the tape at the same time to get a little bit more control. I'll probably add a hand crank onto there as well, just so I can actually push it back in better. So I could pull it out and it kind of goes back in, but not all too well right now, so I still got to work out that. And then the little cylinder in the middle that I have here, it works, it wasn't quite right for getting those wires into there, so I'm going to need to make some changes to that as well. So if you're interested in learning and following along with this project, I will be doing another live stream tomorrow at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So feel free to join in and follow along with the process.